Okay, it's time for episode 17. Once again, Chucky here, just as always, and we've also got Jigsaw.
Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, and a fantastic lineup of movies today. I'll let everyone know what's on the menu.
Well, I think fantastic is a bit strong, but tonight we will be covering the horror comedy Satan's Little Helper from 2004, the 2008 British movie The Children, a Jet Li movie from 2005 titled Unleashed. From 1989, there is going to be The Dad Pit, and we will finish off with, from 2016, The Greasy Strangler.
Okay, well, we'll get things started with Satan's Little Helper from 2004. So essentially, it's about a little kid who has this fucked up fascination with Satan. The kid stumbles upon a guy dressed in a fairly Satanish looking costume who's going pretty much from house to house, killing people and displaying the dead bodies as Halloween props. So the kid, who seems to think it isn't all entirely real, he asks Satan to come home and kill his sister's boyfriend because the kid has some sort of incestuous crush on his sister. And they also go out and about, create some other Halloween mayhem together, and eventually people start finding out that it isn't just pretend. Now this is a movie, I actually remember when this movie came out, it actually came out on DVD in Australia like months before pretty much most other countries, even the US. And it was around a time where there was a lot of really cheap movies filling up the DVD shelves at like video rental stores. And I mean, there was movies like Serial Slayer and Sickle and some other things that I can remember that weren't very good movies. In fact, some of them were just plain terrible, but they would, be on the shelves with pretty cool cover art, and you'd rent them, and then, you'd be like, how the fuck did this even get made? and I rented this one thinking it's probably going to be something more along the same lines. And even though this is a cheaper looking movie than many others, it was actually quite surprising because it is quite an enjoyable movie. I mean, I when I first saw it, I think I raved about it because, I was just expecting something pretty, low budget and terrible. I did get a fairly low budget movie, but it's actually, it's really fun. Especially the Satan guy. I mean, you can't not enjoy his performance in the movie.
So this is a movie I have known about for quite some time, but I've never actually seen until recently. And I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't actually expect to like it that much. Mainly because I don't necessarily trust Chucky's picks. But it's actually a pretty decent movie. And I mean, it's not just you, but I've heard a lot of people talk, positively about this one. It is a, lower budget, but I don't think it hinders anything. I think the story is, somewhat creative, and there's some, in my opinion, some pretty decent performances, which is always, a good thing and makes the movie go quicker. My one big issue with this one is I think it went on a bit longer than it had to. If they had just cut the time down a bit, I probably would have been a bit happier, but I still think it's a pretty decent movie.
You mentioned some decent performances. Exactly which people are you referring to?
Well, it's so most of the main cast, I would say, were probably pretty decent. I did like you mentioned the killer, and I don't remember who plays that guy off the top of my head, to be honest. But I really liked I think her name is Amanda Plummer, who played the mother, who was a very, very quirky character, but I mean, I really liked her. She was a really fun character. And of course, who called it like Catherine Winnick, who is, let's just say, mildly attractive. Indeed. But I mean, those two I thought worked really good together. I mean, the kid bothered me, but I mean, he doesn't really matter. So I know the main performances of both Plum and Winnick, and I even liked the boyfriend when he appeared. He was decent. I don't know, it's just sort of a fun characterization.
Yeah, that kid, he's I mean, you'd tolerate him, but he's pretty annoying.
Yeah. Luckily, I don't know if he's, really through the end of the movie, it becomes more about the teenage Dowdy than it does the kid, in my opinion. So that's a positive.
Yeah, the little game he plays, I mean...
It's one of the shittiest games I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's a pretty shitty looking game. And at times, it's like a full screen game, then at times it's got all these black borders around it. It's like not pretty... It's not consistent. I'm guessing they got someone to create a flash image and then just put it on the screen.
Yeah, one thing I noticed about that game is I had a lot of point inconsistencies. Like some things that got a lot more points than you would think they would, and some other actions didn't get as much points, and that sort of bothered me.
Yeah. Well, I noticed right at the start a sequence in which he, pulled on this guy's shirt and threw a manhole cover, and it gets repeated again when the boyfriend's playing it, like he's playing it the exact same way. They're like, fuck it, no one will notice.
Yeah, it looked like a quality piece of gaming. Speaking of which, I liked how the mother was completely cool with the Satan obsession. So it's like, oh, it's just another thing. It's cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the start she was kind of like, yeah, he's got this incest thing going on, and she didn't even really make a big deal out of that either. She's like, yeah, whatever. But I must say, I wish... Well, I don't wish I was the little boy, but... yeah.
Probably the boyfriend, but...
Maybe.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with Catherine Winnick. I mean, the name sort of seemed like I should know it, but I looked through IMDb credits and I didn't see anything that stood out. But, I mean, I think she, aside from being attractive, I think she did it pretty well in the movie too. I mean, I don't know, especially toward the end when she became more of like the focal point of the movie. I don't know, I thought she did a pretty good job, and it's definitely probably one of the standouts here. If only there had been some nudity.
In fact, I think I've got a YouTube clip from I don't know how old now, probably going on 10 years. I've actually got the YouTube clip where he's feeling up her breasts and everything on my channel.
Speaking of which, I know it's a comedy movie, obviously, but that sequence, when everybody just assumes it's a boyfriend, that's a somewhat creepy sequence. And when they finally find out, oh hey, that's not actually who it is, it's not really played for laughs, at least as far, I'm sure people found it funny. But I mean, in movie, both the mother and daughter, you could tell that they were, somewhat, taken aback.
Yeah, and I mean, some people, I know back, especially when I first watched it, and other people were starting to watch it, some people were complaining that they didn't like the ending. But I personally thought the ending was fine. I mean, it's a bit of an open-ended type thing, and I mean, I couldn't really think of a great way to end the movie. Other than your typical, okay, someone kills him and it's over. But
yeah. I was actually okay with the end. I thought it was as soon as I saw them go up to a police officer, I sort of expected it. But even so, it was I thought it was sort of fun.
It's just a cheap, fun movie from the guy that directed Neverending Story Part 3.
I did not know that. I'll just reiterate that my, I guess, biggest issue is I do wish the movie had been cut down a bit. It gets, I don't know, after the Satan guys reveal to not be the boyfriend, things start, picking up again. But there was a lot, I think it was almost 55 minutes before that happened. So the beginning is a bit spread thin, in my opinion. But there's enough material in there to, keep you interested. It just, I wish it wasn't as long as it was. But that's my, I guess, one minor complaint.
I didn't even really look at the runtime, so I'm not sure how long it went for.
The movie's an hour and 40 minutes, give or take.
Okay, you can maybe cut down 10 minutes. Yeah. Maybe just remove some of the kids' scenes. We don't need to see him that much.
Like the whole policeman scene, when they're in the cemetery. I mean, that didn't. I don't know. It didn't really. add anything, and they probably just could have gotten rid of that, but I don't know. It doesn't really make much of an impact whatsoever, but just a small thing.
Would have been nice to see how he dealt with the cops. I mean, they kind of have that one off screen.
Yeah, I sort of see. I wish we had seen it, but I sort of appreciate what they went for. More of a like after the fact type thing. Who doesn't like the sacrilegious Jesus though? That cracked me up. Because it's not this obviously wasn't a high budget movie. So, but you don't usually expect to see something like that in a movie. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah, so, it's a movie I've seen probably at least 6, 7, 8 different times by now, and I think it's pretty enjoyable. It's quite fun, and, the main character doesn't talk, and he's, pretty entertaining throughout, so I give it an 8 out of 10. I recommend it, especially, whether you're a slasher fan or not, or just horror fan in general. I'm sure there's quite a lot of people out there who'd appreciate this movie.
Yeah, so this is a movie I've seen once, but I had a decent time with it. I wasn't blown away or anything, but I thought it was a pretty fun story. It might be one of those movies that you just pay an Ave, Halloween, much like Trick or Treat and Halloween. And it's enjoyable. I don't like it quite as much as to give it a great rating. I do think it's above average. I'd probably go with a 7.5, but I think I would probably round it down to a 7 out of 10. So it is above average, but it's somewhat borderline, and it's definitely worth seeing though.
You can't see it right now, but I'm giving you the Satan middle fingers.
I can feel it though. Oh, speaking of well, I have no segue. Next movie is the British movie from 2008, The Children. Movie is basically about a Christmas vacation. Parents meet up with other people and stuff happens. This is a movie I don't really care much about. So
that's a fantastic synopsis there. Stuff happens.
It seemed to me like some type of outbreak, but they don't really go into it. It wasn't really zombie, but it was some type of infection. I think like I said, it's not really made clear. But basically these two families get together. There's a bunch of children. I think 5 or 6. And the children start acting strangely, so the adults have to defend themselves from the children. Or just slap the other kids because, oh my god, kids, could it be bad? I don't know. This is a movie I actually saw once before. I got maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, and I heard some okay things about it. It has an okay rating on IMDb. It has a 6 out of 10, which that's not shabby. But when I saw it, I thought I was missing something because it just felt off. And seeing it again sort of solidifies that. Something about this movie just doesn't do it for me. I mean, I really like the performance of Hannah Toyden, the teen girl. She was pretty decent, but a lot of the movie's just really frustrating, and it's not like one of those fun, frustrating things. It's just you just wish that these characters would just outdie and you could be watching something else.
I remember seeing this once back, kind of around the time it was, just came out. I don't think I've ever seen the original, because this is a remake, isn't it?
Actually, I know there's a movie from the 80s called The Children, but I didn't actually know this was a remake.
Yeah. I just kind of assumed, So, I haven't seen the 1980 version, if this is a remake of that, but
I would say reading the plot of the 1980 version, it is very, very smallly connected. I would think it's a remake.
Okay, well, if that's the case, I mean, I don't really have any problems with remakes, to be honest. If they're good, they're good. If they're bad, they're bad. But I mean, this movie, I was sort of along the same lines. I thought it was okay. I didn't think it really had any outside of maybe one scene towards the end, there was no real standout scenes that I'd say, ooh, I'd like to see that moment again, or that moment had a great impact on my viewing. So, yeah, I mean, it was okay. It just kind of moved along, went through the motions. Certainly not a bad movie, just not really special either.
I want to point out that at the end of the movie, there's a scene where the mother and teenage daughter are driving by a deserted vehicle. And they could have just, drove by, but they stop. And one of them gets out of the car, and I'm thinking, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, I thought, you guys would actually be smart and just move, but no, that bothered me.
Well, another thing with that is that, the woman driving, didn't she have, like, a bone hanging out of her leg or something? I mean,
yeah,
and she's using that leg to drive with, and yeah, so I wouldn't think she would be able to comfortably do that.
And actually, I'm sorry, there's one more thing. And this might have been one of the bigger impacts for me on the movie, but I'll ask you, did you care about any of the children whatsoever?
I was going to say that I didn't care about really any of the parents. and yeah, I guess, the children. I didn't really care for really most of the people in this movie. So
I did sort of like the one creepy uncle. Well, I mean, to be fair, he never actually did anything, so he's probably safe.
Yeah. The highlight for the movie is the fact that there's like a cat in the movie with the same name as my cat, Jinxie. So
that is not my highlight, but I also appreciate those personal connections. I did like some of the death scenes. They weren't amazing, but since some of them were happening to kids, it made a little more impact. But then, see, I'm not a parent, so it's sort of hard for me to relate to these parents saying, "Oh my God, we can't hurt the children." It's like, if they're coming at you with a knife, you can shoot them. It's okay. Like, and like having just do what you have to do. And that just, again, I'm not a parent, but that just bothered me. Just if you're defining yourself, I don't care who you're defining yourself against, you have a right to define yourself. And it just bothered me, and especially when that one parent starts beating on their kid for being logical. That scene bothered me. Like, I sort of liked that father for a lot of the movie, sort of, but that scene, I was just done with him. So I don't know. It's, again, I think the movie's more often than not frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's why earlier I said, the parents all kind of suck, because, like you said, there are moments where the one teenage girl's making all the logical choices and they're just kind of giving her shit for it.
Yeah, especially like when that one, the other mother was like blaming the teenage girl for the kids going missing. Oh God.
Yeah, it is a bit frustrating in a way to see that happen, because you as a viewer know, who's making the right choices, and you're like, ah, stupid idiots.
Yeah, this movie, something about it doesn't work with me. And I've seen it twice, and I tried to give it a fair shake both times, but I'm missing something, or the movie's just not good, and I'm leaning toward the latter. So I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. It's very much below average. It's not something I would care to watch again. And I personally, obviously, if you were to see it, to see some killer kid action, by all means, but I would be surprised if somebody went and saw this and was like blown away by it. So take that as you will.
I give it a 6 out of 10. I mean, I had an okay time watching it, but it's just not anything special. And like I said, there's just maybe one scene towards the end of the movie that had really any great impact on me. Everything else just kind of went through the motions, and some of the characters did it. They weren't always annoying, but they made annoying decisions, and yeah, it's just sometimes frustrating to watch some of the things that people were doing in this movie. And yeah, I'll probably watch it once again 10-20 years later, and we'll see how that viewing goes. But I think both times I've watched it so far, I've kind of been around this 6 out of 10 rating.
Yeah. If anything, I would say this movie is extraordinarily unremarkable.
I mean, it's not bad. It's just.
Well, I would say it's bad, but speaking of movies that are not bad, what is next, Chucky?
I can never tell if you're being.
No, actually, that was non-sarcastic. I apologize.
Okay, yeah, so next up we've got Unleashed from 2005, starring Jet Li. It's about a man enslaved by the mob since childhood, and he's raised into behaving like a human attack dog. So he basically just attacks people when they haven't paid their debts. So during an attack, he escapes his so-called surrogate family and attempts to start a new life until it all kind of catches back up to him. So I originally saw this movie at the theaters when it first came out. This is a pretty simple movie, but it's still quite different to a lot of other movies out there. And I quite enjoy it as well. I think it's got some cool action sequences, and the fight scenes are pretty awesome for the ones that we get to see, and it's got a bit of an emotional touch to it as well, if that does anything for anyone out there. Yeah, no, I thought it was an entertaining movie from start to finish.
When the movie started out, I thought it was a very different setup, and I was leaning toward disliking it from the beginning because the whole idea of like a human attack dog who is much more animal than, well, I know that humans attack the animals, but much more dog-like than he is human. Just it just didn't feel right. But I will say once the movie got going, I was pleasantly surprised. And on a side note, I had no idea Morgan Freeman was in this. I didn't even see his name in like the beginning credits. I just saw his face when he popped. I'm like, oh hey, that's Morgan Freeman. So the movie went up like 6 points. So I know I really like the main cast, Morgan Freeman, Jet Li, and that one chick whose name I forget. But and even like the mob boss guy, he was pretty entertaining. So I don't know, the movie was different, but I thought it had pretty good action. I thought it had a pretty good emotional impact. I thought Morgan Freeman and the other that one chick did a lot to help that along. And that one of my favorite fighting sequences in this movie is that one. I forget. It was in a very small enclosed space. I forget what that space was off the top of my head.
It's like a hallway or a bathroom or something.
Yeah, that was like such a tight space, but that's a really. I mean, that whole sequence, was fantastic. But that fight right there, that was just some fun stuff. So I enjoyed this a lot more by the end than I thought it was going to. And a shout out to the director for having it be not as bleak as an ending as some people might think.
I thought it was kind of amusing how the mob guys or whatever you want to call them, both times, or at least twice in the movie, they have like a severe car accident.
They have no luck.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the movie, they get smashed by this huge truck, and then shot at, and then later on the car flips. And
I am surprised that guy lived. By the way.
Yeah, and he's always like making it out alive. I mean, this is the luckiest guy ever.
I was somewhat surprised it wasn't the scene of what's her name trying to seduce Jet Li. I felt like it was leading up to that, but it never quite happened. Could have been a whole different movie. There was one thing I wanted you to throw in. Oh yeah, the whole like underground fighting ring type thing. That one fight where they're just throwing in all those like bladed weapons and stuff. He's just like beating the shit out of all of them. That was a lot of fun. And so it's like you say, this movie, even though it sort of starts out, maybe not the best, but the fighting sequences and fantastic, and it never really. I mean, it slows down sometimes, but I would say it probably never really gets boring. Now, I had no idea what this movie was when you suggested it. I've never heard of it. This is quite possibly the only Jet Li movie I've ever seen in my life. So I didn't necessarily know what to expect out of it, but I was pleasantly surprised. So especially for like a random action movie from like the mid 2000s, I have to imagine. I see it's from my perspective, I haven't seen many of them, so I just imagine most of them are like subpar. But this was I thought it had a nice mixture of action and some emotional sequences. So there's really a lot going for this one. 8 out of 10, A minus B plus movie.
Okay, I give it the same thing. 8 out of 10. I really enjoy it. Cool fight scenes. It's pretty entertaining from start to finish. Like it slows down a little bit at certain points, but not to the point where it becomes uninteresting. It's always interesting, and eventually it works back in some action if that's all you're in there for. There's action at the start, there's action at the end, maybe just in the middle if the story or emotional parts aren't doing anything for you. That's where it might drag a little bit. No, I mean, for me, start to finish, good movie.
Plus, it teaches you how to eat ice cream, so.
Yes.
Next, we have from the late 80s, and this isn't a movie I see spoken about very often, but it's a movie titled The Dad Pit.
You know what? Actually, just before you go into that, it's had like a Blu-ray release just earlier this year, and so I've heard a lot about it. Not necessarily about the movie, but about the Blu-ray release, because the company that released it, they're just notorious for a lot of different reasons. But so whenever they mention something or do a Facebook post, it just blows up.
Huh.
They release this movie with fancy packaging, a glow-in-the-dark slip cover, and all this kind of stuff, and it's such, like, it's a low-budget horror movie, and it's getting this treatment like it's one of the greatest movies of all time.
No, I'm okay with that, because I actually think this is somewhat of a unsung classic. Now, this is a fun fact. We actually covered this back on the Fight Evil radio show like 10 years ago. And because I remember talking about this movie with previous members of Fight Evil. And that was the last time I had seen this one. So I've only seen this one twice, but seeing it again was sort of a nice surprise. But anyhow, the plot of the movie, before I get too hung up in it. There is a sort of insane doctor at a mental institute who is killed by the head of the institution. And then 20 years after this, a mysterious woman comes into the institution. She doesn't remember her name or who she is. And when she comes along shortly thereafter, an earthquake happens, which seems to crack the seal of an underground pit of dead bodies, victims of this insane doctor from 20 years ago. And things happen. The woman sees this doctor pop up, and it's fun things go down. This actually quite a bit of what to say about this movie. So I'll just start out with saying that I really liked the opening. It's like a 9-minute opening before we get to the title screen. And it just it shows a little clip of something happening, and it says one name, and it shows another clip, and then another name. I thought this very interesting way to get you engaged in the story, and I thought it really worked because from the very beginning you're wondering, hey, what's this doctor doing? Why is this doctor following him? What's with this cool spiral staircase going down in this greenish light? I don't know. I thought it did a really good job of getting you engaged into the movie. But before I talk more about this, and I will, because spoilers, this is the best movie we're discussing tonight. What were your opinions on this one, Chucky?
Yes.
I know after my high praise, you're thinking, God damn it, this is shit.
No, it's not bad. I actually hadn't seen this movie before. I'd obviously heard about it, but never really ever bothered to give it a watch. There are some things I liked about the movie, but I think I liked the idea of the movie more than the execution. There are some scenes like the doctor just randomly showing up in different places, and sometimes with his glowing eyes and things like that. I thought those moments were kind of cool and sometimes creepy, but is a fairly cool looking character at times. But there's a lot of other things happening in the movie that I didn't really care about. I thought some of the acting was pretty hokey. the Jane Doe character, she spends quite a bit of time strutting around just in her underwear, which I certainly don't have a problem with, but at the same time it just seemed like they were doing it for that reason. it's got some okay effects, and yeah, like I said, I think there's a good movie here. I just think there's different things that could have been, or things that could have been done differently, or maybe if the acting was a little better or different, I would have enjoyed it more. I had an okay time with it, but I certainly didn't love it.
Yeah, I think though this one part in this movie when things start, going a bit downhill, in my opinion, and that's about hour into the movie when the doctor like rises his zombie army, and the movie turns in about for 15 minutes into more like a generic zombie movie. A bunch of zombies going around eating people, tearing people apart, and that's okay if you're a zombie guy, but with what we had before this, that just felt a lot more, generic than the rest of the movie. And I know it was probably necessary for the story, but that's one part that I don't really care much for.
Towards the end, I mean, I didn't watch a HD version of this, so correct me if I'm wrong, and I don't know if you did either, but at the end, it feels like I'm watching a model of a building rather than an actual building. I'm assuming it's a model where they're just.
Yeah, I would assume so too. No, I don't think I watched an HD version or anything, but I mean that's the feeling I got from it.
Yeah, so it doesn't hugely impact my rating in a negative way, but it's just one of those things where you just kind of like, I'm well aware I'm looking at a model of a building, not an actual building, flooding with water and all this kind of thing.
Speaking of which, I do like how randomly I've not seen that many movies where holy water is the bane of zombies. So that's so fun. I mean, it's a very easy out. Hey sister, can you blast out this water? Well, I can do the prayer, but Jesus does the blasting. I mean, it's nice. It's quite an emotional time right there. But and that's actually another small thing I like. Now, Jane Doe, I did it, I did love her character. She was okay. I did have a problem with him, but I really did like the British guy. And I'll tell you his name, but he's a bit of a nobody. Stephen Gregory Foster. I thought his character was pretty fun, and plus he likes blowing things up. So who can't like that? I don't know. He's just a pretty fun guy, and if there's any character in this movie that's worth watching, it's probably that guy. And one other thing, I really like the setting of this movie. It takes place in one building's occupied, but the rest of like the institutions just like empty, deserted buildings, and I don't know, they didn't use it necessarily as much as they probably could have, but just the setting of this is, I think pretty fun.
I thought it was quite amusing when I looked this up on IMDb that I think all but one person actually has an IMDb picture.
Yeah.
So pretty much everyone, I mean, I'm not saying that they're completely nobodies. I'm sure they've been in some other stuff, but usually if they've been in anything half decent, they probably have an image of themselves on the website. So they've probably been in just a bunch of, one or two low budget things and gone away for most people. I was actually kind of surprised to see that the woman that plays Jane Doe, what was it, Cheryl Lawson?
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised to see that she's actually more of a stunt woman than an actress, because, I mean, she's a fairly attractive woman, so... And I see in some other movies she's played, like, literally someone called, attractive lady or something, or something like that. But yeah, I was kind of surprised, someone who is considered that attractive would be doing stunt work more than acting, so...
Yes. Speaking actually of which, this is one scene, and this is probably because I first saw this movie when I was much younger, but that scene toward the beginning when, that dream sequence when she's getting her top ripped off by the high pressure water, that is one scene that has stayed with me for many years.
And for multiple reasons.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's that's I think the only bit of nudity we get in this movie, but she's a decently attractive actress, and like you say, she walks around half naked like majority of the movie, so it's not like after the scene you don't get anything.
Well, I mean, I can kind of see why she doesn't get too many acting roles. Her acting itself isn't that great.
To be fair, is her acting a problem, or is it just because her character doesn't know who she is and she doesn't know how she's supposed to act?
No, it's her acting.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's a lot of different people's acting, to be honest.
I don't know. I don't think there's a bad actor in this movie, to be honest. Aside from maybe the crazy doctor, who was just maybe a bit too over-enthusiastic. I'm done with studying life, now I study death. Yeah, it cracked me up. I mean, the glowing eyes were a bit hokey, but I don't know. I think more than anything else, I find sort of a charm to that than a criticism.
Yeah, I do too. Those were the scenes that I wouldn't say. Well, yeah, you know, when I think back at this movie, that's what I'm going to be thinking of, rather than anything else that happened.
And also, another small thing, toward the end of the movie, we're giving. It's not really a plot twist, but I guess to the character, it's like new information. Because I'm pretty sure, you know, for halfway in, you definitely knew this was coming up. But I sort of really like the way they reveal the information. You know, it shows her running as, you know, in a doubt, and then it shows her running as a kid, and it sort of shows the images together. And I don't know, I sort of like that. It's like the movie, it tried to be more than what it is, and it tried to maybe make the scene have a bit more impact than it probably was ever going to, but I still thought it came out somewhat okay. This movie isn't a perfect movie. There's a few issues with it. Like I said, when it becomes more of like a generic zombie movie, I sort of lose a bit of interest. But at the same time, it's also like a water tower that's blown up by a cool British guy. So, I mean, who can't like that? I legitimately enjoy this. It's a movie I enjoyed when I first saw it. And I think when we talked about it on the radio show way back when, I probably gave it the highest rating back then. And I still enjoy it now. So, I would give this an 8.5, and I'm going to round this up to a 9.
That's a pretty high score. Maybe you were high when you watched it.
I was actually not, but that might not be a bad idea.
I actually was thinking somewhere between 5 and 6 out of 10. So I think I'll give it a 6. I appreciate some of the stuff it was going for, and I don't necessarily... Like I said before, I like the idea of the movie. I didn't necessarily think it was executed all that well. It was quite sloppy at times, and it just didn't do it for me. Though I will say that I'm sure I'll give this movie another chance at some point in a few years, and who knows, you know, sometimes it just depends what mood you're in at the time, and that will affect your rating. Sometimes you're in a great mood to watch a certain type of movie, and that helps. And I'm not necessarily saying I was watching this movie at a time where I didn't want to watch it, but sometimes it's just better than others. And
yeah, that's one thing. It's difficult. When you go into a movie, you try to, you know, go in somewhat neutral. But if you're having somewhat of a bad day or like a good day, you know, it sort of changes your perspective of the movie. You know, like, this is a movie I was really, you know, happy, I was excited to see again because it's been like 10 years. So it's very possible that colors my view of, you know, my experience.
Okay, so next up we've got the Greasy Strangler from 2016. It's about a father and a son. The father, named Ronnie, he runs a disco walking tour with his son Braden. And when a sexy woman, and I'm using sexy in quotations here.
Is she your type?
Well,
just go on.
I'm just going to ignore that. So when she takes a tour, it begins a bit of a competition between the father and son for her love. And there just happens to be this oily strangler walking the streets at night, killing people. You know, that's pretty much the plot. It's one of these movies that's just so weird and crazy, and I don't know, you gotta be into a certain type of comedy to really enjoy this, I think, and luckily for me, I enjoy this type of humor. I mean, some people will look at it and just say, well, that's retarded or that's stupid, but, there's a lot of quotable scenes for me, and, scenes that quite memorable. I'll go back and watch specific scenes and certain conversations in the movie. It's just, I find it funny. The characters are quite interesting and funny in a stupid way, but yeah. I don't know. I could just think of different moments in the movie and just laugh. So I know for you tend to not enjoy really silly comedies. So I'm assuming you didn't have a great time with this.
This movie, I have had some friends from other horror websites who have seen this one and speak positively about it. It wasn't a movie I was particularly interested in seeing, but admittedly, it's a movie that I sort of put off watching because I didn't want to see it. But I started watching it and I tried to give it a chance, but there was a movie, I think we talked about this, I don't know if it was last week, maybe 2 weeks ago, called Triloquist, which I gave a infamously low rating, and this movie I think is actually worse. Yeah. I actually had more fun with Triloquist than I did this one. And I think a lot of that is probably for the same reasons that other people like this movie, because you obviously you're not alone in liking this. This has like a 5.2, 5.6 on IMDb, something like that. It has a pretty okay rating. But I'll just say that the characters here, they didn't feel like real people. The conversations ranged from tilted and awkward to cringe-inducing, and the chants throughout the movie, like the free drinks at the beginning, or the whole disco cutie thing. Like there are times when I wanted to just like stop and just stop, but I persevered and I got to the ending, which was oh boy. Anyhow, what are your favorite parts about this movie?
Sounds like you didn't get your free drinks. That's why you're upset.
I am indeed a bullshit artist. So.
Yeah.
And don't even get me started on. Oh god. Okay, Jess, I'm sorry. Go.
Don't even get you started on what?
Just the whole bullshit artist thing. Like that's not even a phrase I was familiar with. I'm assuming it was an actual phrase. I mean, I doubt this movie came up with it. If it did, it just came up with one of the most annoying phrases in history. But
no, bullshit artist's been around for I don't know if it's how. I mean, it's something that I've heard pretty much my entire life. So
see, I've never heard of it until this movie. So, and like this father-son relationship's probably not the most healthy relationship I've seen.
I wouldn't say anything they really do is healthy. So.
And also, the woman whose name I forget, there was a scene in which, she was, she's been with the son, but then she sort of randomly goes over to the father. I thought at first she was doing that to, like, get some information, like, hey, is this guy actually the Greasy Strangler? But no, she just, like, jumps ship and, like, goes over to the father. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, I don't know, it just bothered me. These people aren't really people, and it wasn't really my idea of anything good.
I always think that this movie feels like what it would be like if Adult Swim tried to make a horror movie. Or I think of shows like Tim and Eric, like in fact the Braden character in this. When I first watched this movie, I actually thought it was the Eric guy from Tim and Eric show. So I wasn't. I was surprised to see that it wasn't him and there's someone else out there. But no, it's got weird music, and the director seems to think, he says it's not a horror movie. I mean, to quote Wesley Snipes, you can put a cat in an oven and that doesn't make it a biscuit. It is a horror movie. Yeah.
I can understand why somebody would say that, because it's often listed as like a horror comedy, but I mean I can see why people would take issues with either label, because the horror is, I mean it's obviously there. You see people get strangled on screen,
You get their eyeballs
Yeah,
eaten, and
you see an old naked guy with a giant penis go through a dry cleaner. Like, the hole is there, but it's the way this movie's made. And to be honest, I don't really know what they're going for. Obviously, enough people enjoyed it to get decent rating, like I said. But I don't know what they were going for, and it just for me it obviously didn't work.
what do you think about his Michael Jackson story?
I've got nothing. I mean, see those scenes where it's like, was he trying to be, trying to have an actual relationship with his son? Rephrase, an actual like connection with his son. Those scenes, they were okay scenes, and the stories were, even if they were made up, the stories are fine. But then it goes, like the father's such a dick. I mean, and he has, quite a large one also, but I don't know. That father was probably one of the worst characters in the movie, but it's really hard to say that though when pretty much any of the three main characters were iffy. Like even the son, he bogged the hell out of me most of the time because it's not like he was a necessarily bad guy, but the guy was one of the most boring individuals I know. And of course, he writes fantasy novels, but. This is the keeper of the troll bridge.
Well, no, it's just I just think all the dialogue in the movie is just so ridiculous that it's funny. Even when he's having sex, am I doing it right? And he's just like, am I doing it right? And then she's like, imagine if I just farted right now.
Yeah, that was some very romantic stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking more about the movie, and it's just, I've got nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still a bit of a child at heart. I enjoy a lot of immature stuff, and yeah, like I said, with the whole farting thing, if someone, well, not even that, like, there's a scene later on where this Oinker character comes up.
And I have no idea what the hell that guy was.
But just randomly kind of talks to the dads, like, you let go a real humdinger last night, and his eyes were watering. And just the look he gives after the heavy breathing, like, I don't know, just silly things like that. I just find it all funny. So, and even like, there's a scene where he goes up to this hot dog vendor, and the hot dog vendor's like, or he says to him, give me a dog, and he's like, I'm gonna make yours extra piquant, and then he takes like 2 seconds to make it. I'm like, what's so piquant about this? And to quote him, what the fuck is this shit?
That might be an understandable reaction to the hot dog, in all fairness.
He could lose his license. Yeah. Anyways, no, it's just, I just enjoy all this silly shit. So, I mean, I don't need to really go on too much more about why I thought the movie was enjoyable. It's pretty much enjoyable for all the wrong reasons. So, 8 out of 10, fight me.
Yeah, this is a movie. This is a type of movie, in my opinion, that it's hard to have a middle ground. Like, you either get it or you don't. And I didn't get it. In this movie, like I said, I found it a challenge to get through. Just the idiocy of some of the conversations going on. I get that some people enjoy that, and obviously people can enjoy, what they enjoy. But it wasn't my type of thing, and I would give this one a solid 0 out of 10.
Round it up to a 1 because we don't do zeros.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know why. On a side note, almost no rating system has a 0. So, I mean, there's not many things out there of 0 value, but I mean, they do exist. So it just also bugged me.
Well, 1 is meant to signal the worst, so.
Yeah, but 1 still gives it something. Like, I don't know, it's just a small thing, but I mean, it's nothing. It can get a 1. Well done, Greasy Strangler.
Well, see, if you add a 0, then there's 11 different ratings you can give. So,
and if you add 0.5, then have a lot of stuff going on. I don't know, this is unrelated to the Greasy Strangler, but it's related to the name. This is actually I think it's a Japanese movie from the 70s called The Oily Maniac. I think it's 1976, and that is it's nothing out like this because it's actually gold. But it's a very interesting and wild movie. If you've seen many Asian movies from the 70s, or it looks like it's from Hong Kong. If you've seen many Asian movies from the 70s, they can sometimes be they can be a bit out there. So if anybody happens to chance across The Oily Maniac, I would recommend giving that a watch. I would not recommend giving this one a watch. What is your favorite scarecrow horror movie?
Scarecrow horror. Yeah.
I like keeping you on your toes.
I don't know.
There are two acceptable answers on a side note, but
well, if you ask my wife, she would say the movie Scarecrows.
Your wife is a very smart woman.
She apparently really loves that movie. I've never really paid too much attention to it, but so I don't say it's good or bad. I've never really paid enough attention to it to really give an opinion on it. I can't even really think of any others other than that one. So
there is a 1981 television movie titled Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, which is a pretty good movie. It's almost like the exact opposite of Scarecrows, in that it takes a lot longer. It's a TV movie, so it's, Scarecrows has a lot of pretty good violence in it, whereas Dark Knight of the Scarecrow doesn't have much in the way of violence, but it does have a lot of suspense, so it's a pretty solid movie.
There's two other movies I can think of involving scarecrows. One which I saw recently at the theaters, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, but that's only like one or two small scenes in the movie, so it's not even a movie about a scarecrow, it just has a scarecrow in it. And then there was another movie, now I'm going to have to look it up because I only remember one of the actors in it, so I don't even remember what it was called. Oh, actually, it is Dark Knight of the Scarecrow. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was thinking of the actor who plays Bubba in it.
Yeah, I only asked because I was thinking about it yesterday. We often talk about, werewolf movies, and there's not really that many great werewolf movies in my opinion. I think it's your opinion too. And like probably, there's quite a few more vampire movies that are probably good than there are werewolf movies, but scarecrows have in my opinion, they have such potential, but there's been very, very few that actually do a good job with it. And every time I think about it, I just become consistently disappointed. So that's why I ask.
Well, I think the best part of Jeepers Creepers 2 is when they're doing the whole scarecrow thing at the beginning. So
yes. I've actually not seen Jeepers Creepers 2 in like 6-7 years. I really liked the first movie, and I remember being decently happy with the second one, but it has been a while, so hopefully it maintains that decent feeling. I've not seen the third one, but I've only heard somewhat mediocre things.